Hi guys, this is Julia Miller. We are here again in my studio with the Lone Star 355. And guess who we have with us? John Guandolo. Did I say your right name? Okay. John Guandolo is here with us today. We are fortunate to have him as a speaker at one of our events here, and he is going to be talking to us about the infiltration of communism as well as Islam into our nation. Is that my understanding?
That's good. It's basically
the
war we're fighting.
Yes, right.
And
There's
we must
been
win.
so much infiltration. And one of the concerns that we've had is we've been talking about, as girls, we've been talking about how things affect Texas. Because we have so many people that are always saying, we want to move to Texas, we want to move to Texas. I know that Texas is going to be the safe place to be. But really, there's a very imminent threat that we feel is right around the corner if we don't actively get involved. So could you speak to that?
Well, sure. I mean, first of all, I think it's important for your viewers to understand that what we're seeing today is intentional. It's the intentional outcome of what our adversaries have been working on for literally decades.
They planned
100 years,
right.
Yeah. And in a longer format, we lay it out, from 1920 to 2022, and you can see how they've done what they've done. But for brevity's sake, they will target key areas that they believe are strongholds, like Nashville, Tennessee, gone. I mean, the communists and jihadis control that. Mm-hmm. That's music country, right? Music
right.
City, USA.
Right.
They target places like Wichita, Kansas. They target places like Charlotte, North Carolina, Tampa, Florida.
Why are they targeting those places?
Because each of them has a particular, like Nashville. People will argue, and I've heard it said, is the buckle of the Bible Belt.
Right.
So if they can take and control that. Well, Texas, you said it earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe this is true strategically. Mm-hmm. If they can take Texas, it's the country's gone.
Right.
And not just that militarily, if you take one area, it means you get all the rest. But it means if the will of the people in Texas will fold, then the chances of other areas withstanding this are probably a lot less. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes.
Right.
So we see across the country this very organized movement of the communists, the jihadis, their collaborators, and their financiers. And at the local level around the United States, they are working seamlessly. Communists and jihadis working together seamlessly. And really the tip of their spear is the interfaith outreach movement. So all the efforts they're doing with the Christian community, the Jewish community, primarily those two, but primarily the Christian community.
Right.
And we are finding that most, meaning not just a majority, a heavy majority of pastors in the United States are just giving it away.
Right.
They're not defending their own faith at all, and they are capitulating to the communists and jihadis for the sake of not offending. And look, I'm not a theologian, but Jesus offended a lot of people.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So offending people can't be your benchmark. It's got to be speaking truth.
Right.
So is this why we see a lot of attacks against Christianity, Christians, and the lack of support for Israel?
Absolutely. And actually, you just brought up an interesting point with Israel. If you go back 10 years, the percentage of college students that supported Israel and did not support the PLO and Hamas versus today, you see much more support for the PLO and Hamas on college campuses. And that's not accidental. This is the point. It's all, you've got groups on campus, whether it's Engage or CARE, the Muslim Student Association, or others. And that's their job, Students for Justice in Palestine. All these groups that are jihadi groups. But they pose as, calm, patriotic groups. They just want equality for all. That's what they will tell you. Well, they're lying. They don't want equality. They have openly said, we want Israel destroyed. We want America destroyed. And that's, as long as you allow them to be on your campuses and operate in your cities, and then you wonder, if communists and jihadis are working together in my city, then you have no right to ask, why are they teaching communism in my school? Why are they having drag queen? Because you allowed it.
That's right.
You allowed the very organizations that do these things.
Right.
And the problem is we're going after issues like CRT in school or pornography in school instead of going after the root of the problem.
I see.
And that's all the work we do, we teach communities how to focus not on the issues, on the root, and flush that out of your community, then all the issues go away.
Right.
But as long as they have good patriotic citizens focusing on the issues, they can keep you doing that for another 50 years until they literally take the country down. Because we have allowed communist teachers and school board members and city council members and people running the Chamber of Commerce at the county or city level to be these people.
Right.
And then we're wondering why these issues are coming up. Well, you're doing it upside down.
That's right.
You have to identify the bad guys and their organizations and flush them and squash them like so many cockroaches.
Well, don't you feel like they have guilted us into this through this whole, well, we have to create equality and you're being racial against this group or that group if you try to speak up?
I think that's a tool.
Right.
But nobody can guilt you into anything. You have to affirmatively agree, oh, okay, so I'm now going to support communism. And I would say to people, and I've met a lot of them, good people, who they have a problem. Like they're like, well, it makes me feel bad if I do this. And then my response is, well, then do me a favor. Just move out of the way because there's a war going on. We need to win it.
Right.
You need to get out of the way because you're part of the problem.
That's right.
So is this also why the squad, for example, has so much power and no one's really countering them?
Yes, that's a really good question. But there's more to that. So, for instance, when we talk about these individuals in Congress that are able to get so much momentum, I would argue it's not just that we at the local level are not doing our part to do the right thing. This brings up another, what I believe is one of the key points. We're losing the war because our biggest adversary, the biggest adversary of the Republican patriots, is the Republican Party and its leadership.
Wow. I agree.
Wow.
From the top, from Ronna McDaniel on down to the state level. And the people that are standing up for patriots are the ones the Republicans are attacking.
That's right.
They just had an election a few weeks ago, the primary for Republicans in Oklahoma, the reddest state where 100% of the counties vote for conservatives, or vote Republican, I should say, not always conservatives. And in the last election, none of the patriots won. They were all Republican establishment candidates. As a matter of fact, John Bennett, who ran the party for a year and threw a lot of people out and cleaned house in the Republican Party, ran for Congress, and they ran 13 candidates against him.
Wow.
And so he didn't make the top two, even though he had very strong support. And but that's just one example. That's going on all over the country. Who stopped the 5 cases that they put into the Arizona State Court that are pro bono attorneys to show these were the 5 strongest cases of fraud? Ronna McDaniel said pull those cases after they were already submitted. You know, it's the Republican leadership, and it's the Republican leadership not just at the federal level, at the state level.
Right.
And the last thing I'll say about this is we go around, we have our Into Action program, and we train communities to do what I just said, flush the bad guys out, reestablish a Republican form of government at the local level.
Mm-hmm. But
The
true
vast,
patriots.
what's that?
But true patriots, not just
They're
Republicans.
patriots, right,
Okay.
right. These communities, what we found is they will tell us when we're showing them, here's how you work at the local level, their biggest point of friction for, I would say, 85+% of the communities we've worked with around the country in the last 5 years, 85% will say the biggest friction comes from the county Republican Party
Yeah.
to their efforts.
So what are people to do? What's your words of wisdom to just the general layperson out there?
Well, first of all, you got to get trained. You cannot just, the biggest thing is what we do at Understanding the Threat. We train communities to understand what's actually going on, to focus not on issues. You can work on issues, but your focus has to be on the bad guys and their organizations in your county, to lawfully but aggressively and creatively flush them out using all means available, and then reestablishing at the county level a Republican form of government, which means you got a clean house in a lot of counties,
Right.
certainly the key counties. And so that's what we do. And you're going to win this war at that level. The federal government, let me put it this way. If your viewers and all of us here think about the one person you think's like the best congressman or senator ever. Don't say it, but imagine 100 of them are in the Senate and 435 are in the House. If that were the case,
Right.
the impact would be minimal
Right.
because the bureaucracy is controlled by our adversaries. The key components of our government controlled by our adversaries. This is going to be won or lost, the whole war, in places like this right here.
Right.
In communities coming together to say, okay, what's going on? And when they realize the depth of how far along we are, and they realize we're literally on the precipice of losing it all.
Oh, absolutely. The
And-
next couple months are going
And
to
a
determine.
red wave won't save you. What will save you is communities taking back their state school board, but primarily a local school board, your local businesses, your chamber of commerce, getting pastors to actually do their jobs and be good shepherds. And if they're not, punt them like a bad football out the door. I'm serious.
I
No, it's
agree.
true.
Because
I
this
agree.
is
They have
where
so
we
much
are.
influence.
This is where we are.
Right.
Your sheriffs, right? Your mayors. This should be the focus of everyone's attention. And if you spend more than 5% of your time worried about what Congress or the FBI is doing, you are wasting time. I would even say at the state level.
Wow.
You know, here in Texas, we have a governor that's not a patriot.
Right.
And the problem is, he sounds like one, but he's not one. And again, look at people's actions, not their words. And look at who they're supporting. That's it. If you look at the leadership in the Republican Party of Texas, they're not patriots across the board. I'm sorry to
there's
say.
two things that don't lie. One is a person's voting record. The second thing is where they're getting their money from. You can always tell. Don't listen to just what somebody is saying with their mouth. Go follow the money and see where they're getting their endorsements from. See how they're voting on the really critical issues, and then you'll see which people who are calling themselves Republicans are truly conservative and those who are not. And I'm sure. Do you have anything to add to that?
Well, what's
No,
your book
that's-
called?
So, Raising a Jihadi Generation is a book about the jihadi movement in the United States. Sharia, which is the truth about Sharia, Islam's deception, the truth about Sharia, is about their doctrine. And then we have a number of things that we've published, and of course videos, and we've got a lot of films, DVDs that we published to talk about the communist and Islamic movements working together, and that's all at understandingthethreat.com.
Understandingthethreat.com. Go check out John Guandolo. Did I say it right? Guandolo?
Guandolo.
John Guandolo at understandingthethreat.com. We so appreciate you being here today.
Thank you.
We appreciate
Thank
you
you so
talking
much.
to our
Great to
group.
be here.
We appreciate you taking just a few minutes to let us catch you on video. I hope you don't mind.
Nope, it's great.
We just want to get your message out. We want to make sure people really understand that this does go so much further than just the surface level of the problems that we're facing in schools, at the school board level, at even the student council, the city council level.
Yeah, student council too.
Right, exactly,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
And even, some of us went and were delegates. A lot of us went to Houston this past year. I know, Wendy, you went with me, and Mark. We all went to the state to be delegates and to be able to vote and to weigh in and to really understand what the concerns were that were coming before the people, and make sure that there was somebody to say, hey, wait a minute, I don't agree with this. Okay, because if you're not there, guess what? It may not get done. We can't always be relying on somebody else to show up, because the wrong somebody else might be showing up and they might be voting away your freedom, which is what a lot of what we saw. Wendy and I saw it. What was that issue about the paper ballots? People started getting up and leaving for lunch because they wanted to beat the lunch hour. We sat there and they said, well, do you guys want to do this vote before we go to lunch or after? Well, half the room had already left, and we're like, well, let's just go ahead and do it, because you know how long it takes to corral people later on. And guess what? There wasn't enough of us patriots in the room to say, we want paper ballots, we want these things hand counted, and it didn't pass. And so, you know what? That got squashed right then and there.
That's really the bottom line, right? There's not enough patriots in the room
Right.
That's right.
to stand up
That's the
to
thing.
everyone
That's the thing.
that is working against us.
Right, exactly. And I think to John's credit here is he's talking about the issue of courage. It's not that we don't have that we are more in number than really the people that are
Oh,
coming
much
against us.
more.
Much more. But people are being cowardly. I'm sorry, I'm just going to call it what it is. You're being cowardly. You know, we got to grow a pair and get some courage and
That's
start
right.
speaking up, start showing up, and start saying, you know what, we're not taking this anymore, and start getting involved with our community, start getting involved with groups like John. Take the training, understand what do we need to do in our community, because most people feel like, I just don't know what to do. I'm just one person. Well, you know what? When we put all of us one persons together, I run an entire single adult ministry, and guess what? When I put every single person together, we are a force to be reckoned with. So
right.
I want to encourage you guys. I want to encourage you guys. Start plugging in, you know, to places like even Texas, True Texas Project. They have speakers every month, and they speak about. We've had Border Patrol officers come there and speak about what's going on. Brought the wristbands of the people that are coming across the border that are being sold into human trafficking. Anyway, we're being summoned here, so I'm going to let you guys go. I love you guys. I want you guys to follow us to our next video, but just know that we are praying for you, and we hope that you will continue to log in and check out John's website. Say it one more time.
Understandingthethreat.com and sign up for our Into Action training program.
Into Action training program. Love it. Thank you so
Awesome.
much, Don. We
Thank you
really
so
do
much.
appreciate
Thank you.
you.